So this week's been quite a busy week. Since my last video, I've been doing quite a few bits and pieces to try and get things moving forward. Obviously, I'm running out of time. Well, I feel like I am. I'm not actually. I've still got about 18 weeks left to go before I launch my card game. But I can't help but feel like I need to keep moving forward as quickly as I can. So I had to think about things I need to do, prioritize last week, and wrote down a list of things that I felt were needed in the next at least sort of 2 or 3 weeks. One of those things was getting the packaging work moving forward for the card game. The reason I thought this was because I can then start moving forward with imagery. I don't actually need to have the cards ready, but if I have the box ready, then I can start putting that on social media, use the imagery to sort of start sending that out. I need to build a website, so that's also on the list, but I can start using the imagery for that. I kind of need that kind of imagery first, and that will then tail into other things, almost like a stage-by-stage process. So one of the things I did was briefed a local designer on the design for the box packaging. That's going to cost me £125 for the design, and I will then have a item in various formats, PDF, etc. So I can print it, I can use it low resolution for website work and social media, etc. One thing I did do, which I was advised to do by somebody at the business services side of things and advice side of things, was to get my designer to just write a short statement to say that I own the rights to the design. Nothing against them. I'm sure they do a great job, and it wasn't a reflection on their services, but it's just moving forward to make sure I own absolute copyright of the design that they're putting together. So this week I've done the design work in terms of briefing my designer, and they've pretty much got that almost ready. So I'm really excited about that, because that's one thing that I've sort of ticked off quite quickly. I've also almost finished the mechanics of the game now. So I'm going to print the cards off that are going to appear in the pack in a very amateurish way. Just print it off on my printer at home. I'm actually going to, and I will talk about this in my next video, this week I've planned to have the first test of the game. So the test is with some unsuspecting people that don't know it's my idea. One thing, whatever business idea you have, and whatever idea, whether it's a product or a service, is you've got to get feedback from people, but think about the quality of the feedback you're getting. If you're just going to family and friends, you're only ever going to get a very biased response, unless they're really brutal. You really need to speak to people that are independent, neutral, who are prepared to hurt your feelings. Now, I'm really nervous about this week, because this is really at a point where I'm putting myself out there. Just over a year's worth of work, I'm now going to be talking to people or explaining to people how the game works, leaving it with them for them to play, and then they're going to come back with their comments. We'll see how that goes. As I say, I'll feedback on that later this week, but it's important to test your product before you start spending too much money. Now, I know I've just spent a little bit of money on the product packaging, but I kind of trying to do a couple of things at the same time here simultaneously. I've obviously set this deadline for the 29th of November, Black Friday weekend, etc. So I'm kind of having to do things quite quickly. I wouldn't necessarily, you would in your own business need to rush that and do it at the same pace as I'm doing. Perhaps I would, in hindsight, leave the packaging bit that I'm doing for the job in terms of the design and wait until I get that testing feedback back. But I also believe in the idea, and I believe that the card game will be good fun. So I think even if it comes back with some brutal responses, I can refine it and it will still be something ultimately I'm going to sell. So therefore the packaging is still needed. I'm still doing this. I'm not going to just sort of drop it just because I get some negative responses. And it also depends what the kind of responses are. They could be critical, but perhaps subjective. They don't necessarily mean that I have to sort of throw the whole thing in the bin and start again. So testing this week, packaging design underway. I've been to a board games conference locally to me where I live. Loads of people rubbed shoulders, spoke to loads of people. It was really useful. And as I've said in previous posts, when you have a passion for something, it's important to immerse yourself and involve yourself in it. It doesn't matter what business or what line of work you're in. Naturally, you need to get involved and rub shoulders with people who are doing the same thing as you. It's so important to get their feedback, their advice. And I got a load of feedback over this weekend, just meeting people who've done the same thing as I'm trying to do, either card games or board games, getting their advice on how they launched, what strategy they use, how they've promoted, how they've sold, how many they've sold, where they got their items produced from. A lot of the people are getting their stuff done out in the Far East. I'm really trying to use UK suppliers for this card game and not go outside the UK at this stage. So really interesting to see how people are going down different routes, obviously to keep the cost to a minimum and that sort of thing. So really good information there that I picked up over the weekend. And again, I would say anyone who's starting a business, rub shoulders, meet people, get uncomfortable, go out and speak to people you've never spoken to before in the industry that you're looking to launch and grow in. It's amazing what information you get and little snippets of tips and advice that you can take back with you. So that was really handy. So we've got the testing this week, we've got the packaging design. I've been and met some people and got some good feedback, got some good contacts. I managed to hand out a couple of business cards and get some information back in terms of keeping contact with a couple of those guys so that moving forward I can sort of bounce ideas off them. So the test will probably happen Thursday, Friday. So by next weekend, I'll do a post on that. And then once I've done the test and off the back of that, seeing how that goes, I also then have a IP lawyer, which I think I've mentioned in a previous post, but just to go back over that, I have sought out advice. It's free advice from a local library close to me, that one of the lawyers there is just going to run through the copyright issues and trademark issues and whether it's worth trademarking or copyrighting any of the game. Obviously, I don't want to publicise the game too much until I've got that advice. So I'm hoping that'll happen fairly quickly in the next sort of week or two. Just understand if there's anything I need to consider in terms of trademarking it before I can then start moving forward. And then moving forward from there, we're looking sort of as we move into August now, I need to iron out where I'm going to and how I'm going to sell the units. I need to look at how many units I hope to sell and set myself some sort of target for the end of the year. I also need to look perhaps at what I'm going to do thereafter in terms of early next year. So quite a bit to do there. I also need to set up the website. So August is going to be a very busy month for me. I think, you know, that the weekly posts are going to get slightly longer, I'm afraid. But hopefully you guys are finding this of interest, and there's little snippets of information there that's useful. You feel free to drop some comments on my videos if you have any questions or want to discuss anything. More than happy to talk about that. I appreciate I'm doing a card game, but I'm trying to represent a small low-cost business to launch that may reflect other businesses that other people are looking to launch, and so hopefully you are getting some useful information off this. So I'll keep posting. We've only got about 18 weeks to go, so I'm going to do the test this week and then we'll go from there and see what the results are.